The video game world is by no means short on post-apocalyptic wastelands to explore, but unless a game comes out based on a boy and his dog, none of them can claim to be based on one of the most influential pieces of post-apocalyptic media in the past 35 years. In this sense, Avalanche Studios' Mad Max is an exciting licensed property in the video game world, and the prospect of playing another post-apocalyptic title, even amidst a market full of them, has only been sweetened by the most recent film in the Mad Max franchise, Fury Road. Given Avalanche's mastery of creating exciting sandbox gameplay with ample opportunity for organic, play-it-your-way hijinks, Mad Max seems poised to be this year's Shadow of Mordor style sleeper hit. Each entry into the Mad Max film franchise has rapidly evolved the world in which the titular character roams. The first film introduces to his world shortly after the Fall, where some structure and comfort could still be found. The Road Warrior showed us a world of scarcity where barbaric tribes roam like pirates. Beyond Thunderdome showed audiences a world where some tribes had started to rebuild private communities, complete with gladiatorial games, and, most recently, Fury Road showed us a community rife with religious fervor, worshipping all things automotive. Predictably, Mad Max the game doesn't evolve the world, instead placing players in a sandbox amalgamation of what can be seen in Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road. Much like the films, Mad Max narrative is sparse, but unlike the films, the supporting cast lacks the charisma to carry the events forward in a satisfying manner. Beginning with an overlong cutscene depicting Max's clash with the game's antagonist, Scrotus, their encounter ends with Scrotus suffering a major wound and Max stripped of his gear and left to wander the desert. In typical video game fashion, it's up to Max to rebuild his car, reacquire his gear, and end Scrotus' violent reign over the wasteland. While its narrative is certainly in the spirit of the films upon which it is based, the weak supporting cast and unfocused objective make for an underwhelming narrative experience, especially when paired with 40 hours of gameplay. Early on, Max encounters a mechanic named Chum Bucket, who helps him rebuild his car and suggests the next wasteland leader to ask for assistance. Upon encountering each wasteland leader, not much interaction occurs between them and Max. Their trust and tolerance is easily gained, and there is very little narrative surrounding them. Each leader has a handful of side missions, referred to as wasteland missions, but these amount to petty errands rather than building a plot around each character. The NPCs stand around like props, exuding zero personality and failing to reflect the kind of society that each wasteland leader has built. In this sense, Mad Max takes the scenic route to its conclusion, introducing you to various people of interest, but doing little to make your encounters with them seem essential to your fight against Scrotus.
Have beheld it. My children, the flock of wildfire, eagerly await their righteous salvation. They expect me to deliver them.
Amidst the endless diversions in each of the game's regions, you soon forget why you are where you are and what your objective is. Aside from Chum's crazed banter, there's little reason to pay attention. Upon receiving your bare-bones vehicle and enlisting Chum's assistance, Max's journey begins proper, and a routine is quickly established where players enter a territory, meet its leader, destroy Scrotus' infrastructure, obtain a vehicle upgrade that permits passage to a new territory, and repeat. Mad Max relies on a series of mechanics familiar to those who have played open-world games over the past 5 years. There are enemy strongholds to topple, weather balloons to utilize for reconnaissance and fast travel, loot caches to pillage for upgrade currency, races to partake in, and convoys to smash. In addition to these activities, there are special parts to be on the lookout for that allow Max to upgrade the stronghold of each wasteland leader he encounters. Constructing these upgrades allows Max to replenish his supplies which would otherwise have to be scavenged. The problem is each stronghold requires the same upgrades, and by the midway point, hunting down the components for each stronghold feels like a chore. Likewise, the allure of taking out the strongholds that dot each of the game's regions grows tiresome after the novelty of their sometimes intricate designs wear off. These strongholds are a particular point of frustration, since in many ways they are some of the game's most interesting set pieces. But by being populated with the same handful of gimmicks and gameplay choices, they grow dull long before the credits roll. Some of these strongholds are also home to bosses, none of which can come close to living up to the eccentric antagonists of the films such as Toe Cutter, Humongous, or Immortan Joe. Instead, expect to fight muscular men in gimp masks, wielding polearms ad nauseum.
There's a rule. You don't kill the war crier. Not sure if you're aware. So, this is where it ends. At the hands of a crazy-eyed...
Further hampering the game's mechanics is the mind-numbingly dull combat lifted from the Arkham series, which relies on counters and time button presses. If you have better dexterity than a three-toed sloth with rheumatoid arthritis, expect to yawn your way through the game's uninspired enemies with barely a scratch. The combat system tries to spice things up with new abilities that Max can learn, melee weapons that break after a short period of time, and finishing moves executed with shivs, but due to the ubiquity of its design, combat simply does not stand out. While it may seem that Mad Max is another throwaway game based on a licensed property, it does manage to redeem itself with engaging vehicular gameplay. Your car, the Magnum Opus, starts as nothing more than an engine on a chassis. But as you explore the wasteland, you can locate new car bodies and lower Scrotus' influence over each region to unlock more upgrades. At first, taking control of your car is an irritation. It's slow, handles poorly, and tends to spin out easily, but after a few upgrades, the Magnum Opus becomes a speedy death machine, allowing you to terrorize your foes. What's more interesting is that the upgrades in each category can have a negative impact on other performance categories, so having the heaviest bumper may allow you to deal more damage, but its weight also makes the car slower. You can shove a massive engine in your ride, but it's going to negatively impact the vehicle's handling. This makes it worthwhile to have all of the upgrades and swap between them when the situation calls for it. The visual and performance enhancing upgrades prove to be the most perfect carrot on the stick to motivate players to complete some of the game's more tedious activities. You can also unlock additional vehicles by driving captured enemy cars back to friendly strongholds or by winning races. Given that Mad Max is literally a sandbox, the art team has done a commendable job of creating a compelling world to explore. Each region has a unique theme that differentiates it from the other areas of the wasteland. Some areas are dried out seabed, with clusters of coral and rusted out derelict ships. Others are a network of canyons and rocky, unforgiving terrain. Some of the scenery is quite beautiful in spite of the decay and desolation. Characters don't fare so well, however. The NPCs look painfully generic, and your enemies look much the same with few variations. The main cast is more detailed, and the animations are excellent, however. It's impressive to see Max interact with and utilize the context of his surroundings in combat, creating very natural looking and brutal fisticuffs. The vehicles are also lovingly detailed. The open nature of the Magnum Opus allows you to take in the ratted out interior, and most upgrades are visible on your car. At the start of the game, a crappy single carburetor is visible in the gaping hole in your hood, and each upgrade adds a larger, more aggressive air cleaner protruding proudly from your machine up until you have a towering blower spitting fire from your engine bay.
I'll cross the plains of silence in a car. People, get in my way.
Do you trust the car?
More than any man.
Ultimately, Mad Max's gameplay falls short by not featuring any gameplay mechanics that give the game a unique identity. Most of the gameplay elements featured in Mad Max can be traced back to half a dozen other games that share the same mechanics, two of which are also published by Warner Brothers. It's easy to run headlong into a convoy of 8 cars, turn them into scrap heaps in less than a minute, and reflect back on both Just Cause 2 and Fury Road. Where are the massive war rigs? Why can't you hop aboard other cars? Shouldn't taking out a convoy be something more than blowing up a few vehicles? Your interest in playing Mad Max will likely only last as long as your enthusiasm for driving around the wasteland in a 4-wheel drive rat rod leaving a trail of destruction. Mad Max is a case of competency over excellence, and it doesn't help that the open-world action-adventure game has usurped the third-person cover-based shooter as the go-to game design template. This isn't the sleeper hit it could have been, but it isn't exactly a game to ignore if you're a fan of Mad Max or open-world action games.